Hello everybody, this is part 2 of the procedures video for App Inventor. We're going to be doing a slightly longer procedure for this program, and all this app is going to do is show you a number at the top, and then you have to push the button that corresponds to that number, and if you push it right, then you get a correct answer, so your correct number will go up by 1, and if you were wrong, your incorrect will go up by 1, and there is also a skip button, which we actually won't do right now, but that would increment the skipped area. So very simple app, shows you a number, you have to push the button of that number. So we're just going to jump right into the blocks editor. So if you'll notice, we've got a procedure skeleton already set up. We have 6 buttons, all of them have to do a lot of things. So when you click a button, you have to check to see if the button is the same number as that number, and if it is, then correct goes up 1, and if it isn't, incorrect goes up 1, and then you have to change the number to a new number. So that's a lot of things to do, and we don't want to have to do that thing over and over and over. So we have a procedure to do that for us. So we're just going to call check with the number 1 and saying this clicked number 1, so now run this procedure with the number 1. So what do we need to do for this procedure? Well, we have our labels right down here. So what we should be able to do is, let's go back to here and see what this label is called. It's called label value target. So we're going to find label value target here. So we need to compare the number in here. So label value target.text. We need to compare that to the button that we just got in from the procedure. So we're going to do a text equals, text equals down here. So we're going to say, so remember that name and value are different things. So name means this is the name of the thing I'm getting into my procedure. So it's the name of this number. And then the value is when we actually get that number. So here's our value. So what we need to do is test, are these things equal? So we're going to go into control and say if else. So if else basically means we're going to run a test, and if that test succeeds, then we'll do the things in this top bracket here, and if the test fails, we're going to do things in the bottom bracket here. So we'll put that in there, and we're testing if the which button is equal to the target text. So we're going to grab our which button value. So if these two things are equal, then that means that you hit the correct button. So we're going to say label text correct, and we want to set that text to itself plus 1. So just add 1 to whatever that text was. So we're going to get a math plus and say set it to whatever was in there plus 1. So you got 1 correct. And if you get here, this means that the test failed, which means that you hit the wrong button. And if that's true, then we need to get label incorrect text, and we need to set that to itself plus 1. I'm just going to copy the one out of here with Command C. There we go. So we do the test and we increment those values. Now there's still one more thing we need to do, which is generate a new random number in that text box. So to do that, we're actually going to call another procedure just to make things a little quicker and less cluttered. So we'll make another procedure, and we'll call this make random number. And this does not need to take in any arguments. It's just going to generate a random number between 1 and 6, put it into that label value target text box. So we'll say set that text box to, and then we want to generate a random number. So if we go to math and we say random integer, now we can just give it a range of numbers and it will generate a random number between those. So we want anything between the number 1 to 6. There we go. So now at the very end of check, we're going to call our procedure. Now, why do we call this a procedure? We didn't necessarily have to. We could have just put this block at the very end. And there's one reason for that. In the very beginning of the app, we also want to generate a random number. So we're doing that same bit of code again in a different place. So that's when the screen initializes, we need to generate a random number to start off the app. So we also need to call this function or procedure up at the top. So there we go. This should be complete, and in fact it may be running already. If you have already connected a device to your App Inventor blocks editor, then it will automatically be running sometimes. You may have to restart the app here, so we'll just go ahead and restart it just to be sure. And then our app will start up. Okay, there we go. So it's generated a random number. Looks like it's 1. So if we hit 1, looks like we're having a little error here. Ah, I see. Okay. So here's a very common mistake with naming errors. I was trying to add a number to this text instead of add a number to the value. So always be sure to name things clearly when you are making these. I was using text incorrect when I should have been using value incorrect. And in fact, it turns out I made that mistake right here. I have value correctly here, but here I have text. So you can't add numbers to text, so it was giving me that error. So let's remove the text. And actually we need to remove this text as well. So now instead of setting label text correct, we'll set label value correct. And we need the value of that. So the great thing about App Inventor is I just made that mistake, but since I've just changed the blocks and fixed that error, it should have automatically updated on our view. Now it doesn't always happen, but if you change some blocks around and you're still connected, then it can be that it will just restart for you and you can just be immediately testing again, which is one of the great advantages of App Inventor. So now we've got our values all set up here. Alright, so it gives us a 6, and we'll hit 6, and it increments, and it gives us a correct answer. So now we'll answer incorrectly, do a 2, and it tells us that we're wrong. Now it gives us a 2 again, click 2, and it's correct. So it worked masterfully. So this isn't obviously a bit of code that you would want to put under every single button. You wouldn't want to have this humongous if and another call. You wouldn't have to want to copy and paste that under every single button click. So this is where procedures become very apparent that they're very useful. And it may look a little longer, but it's exactly the same thing as with our simpler example. We're just taking a bit of code that we want to run with just slightly different numbers and reusing it. So that was part 2 of the App Inventor procedures video. Hope this helps everybody. See you later.